Shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham Yahushai, Bahasham Rachak Wadash. Double honors to the elders and the apostles of Great Millstone, and peace and blessings to the elect. And in this lesson, we're going to go into the book of 1 Kings, the 12th chapter, right? So we see that as we left off in the 11th chapter, it went through mainly the prophecy by Ahijah of the Lord rending the kingdom out of the hand of Solomon, but mainly during the reign of his son Rehoboam. And so here we are in 1 Kings 12. Solomon is now dead, and Rehoboam, his son, is now appointed to be king. So this is 1 Kings chapter 12, verse 1. And Rehoboam went to Shechem, for all Israel were come to Shechem to make him king. Now, let's take a quick look here. Shechem. Take a quick look at the geographical, the estimated geographical location. This is not too bad. All right, so you can see here, Judea or Judah is down here, right? You have Jerusalem, Bethlehem, and so on. Once again, these are estimations, but then you have Shechem, which is over here. So right in the middle, right, you have Samaria up north, Judea over here, and so on. Now, also want to look up, so let's actually maybe look it up in here, Shechem, in the Bible. Okay, so it was a place of some events took place over there. Let's put it like that. Let's take a look here. It says Shechem was the place appointed after Solomon's death for the meeting of the people of Israel and the investiture of his son Rehoboam as king, which we're about to read about. But I thought there might be a bit more. All right. So it says here, for all Israel were come to Shechem to make him king. And it came to pass when Jeroboam, the son of Nebat, who was yet in Egypt, heard of it, for he was fled from the presence of King Solomon, and Jeroboam dwelt in Egypt. And we remember, right, that Solomon wanted to slay Jeroboam, right? I'm sure after having heard of, the role that Jeroboam would play, he wanted to slay him. And so Jeroboam fled into Egypt until Solomon, passed. So now Jeroboam hears the news, right? Solomon is gone, and his son Rehoboam is about to be appointed king in Shechem. Verse 3, that they sent and called him. And Jeroboam and all the congregation of Israel came and spake unto Rehoboam, saying. So at this point, Jeroboam is looked at, right, by the bulk of Israel as this leader, right? Because prior to him having to flee from King Solomon, he was appointed over like the labor and everything, right? And the people liked him, as the scriptures say, he was industrious. Okay, so you can sort of imagine after they called him back, he's sort of like the go-to guy, right? Leading them here at this point in coming to Rehoboam to see what kind of ruler would he be. It says, and Jeroboam and all the congregation of Israel came and spake unto Rehoboam, saying, Thy father made our yoke grievous. Now therefore make thou the grievous service of thy father, and his heavy yoke which he put upon us lighter, and we shall serve thee. So remember, during the time of King Solomon's reign, there were a lot of things that he did, right? The building of his house, the building of the temple, and all sorts of other things, and they required resources, right? That included human resources, it included victuals, it included all of these things, which eventually would fall back on the people as well, right? Now we know when we read in the previous chapter that it mentioned explicitly that the labor, not the overseers, those were Israelites, but the actual physical labor was mainly the heathens that were the remnants of the heathens that were left among us. So nonetheless, there's still this burden that was felt by the people. And so they're coming to Rehoboam to say, you know, you got to do something about this, basically. And if you make things better for us, then we're going to serve you. And he said unto them, Depart yet for 3 days, then come again to me. And the people departed. So in other words, give me some time, give me 3 days. Let me get back to you on that. And King Rehoboam consulted with the old men that stood before Solomon his father while he yet lived, and said, How do you advise that I may answer this people? So he was, and these were like the advisors, right, so to speak, in King Solomon's court. And they spake unto him, saying, If thou wilt serve unto this people this day, and will serve them, and answer them, and speak good words to them, then they will be thy servants forever. But he forsook the counsel of the old men, which they had given him, and consulted with the young men that were grown up with him, and which stood before him. So instead of taking the advice of those that were more experienced, wiser, right, he rather wanted to listen to his boys. And he said unto them, What counsel give ye, that we may answer this people, who have spoken to me, saying, Make the yoke which thy father did put on us lighter? And the young men that were grown up with him spake unto him, saying, Thus shalt thou speak unto this people, that spake unto thee, saying, Thy father made our yoke heavy, but make thou it lighter unto us. Thus shalt thou say unto them, My little finger shall be thicker than my father's loins. And obviously a figure of speech, but to say like, you think my father was bad, my little finger right here is going to be far worse than his whole joint, so to speak, right? It's kind of like today saying like, it's going to be 10 times worse under me, right? Roughly paraphrasing. It's not literally 10 times, but it's just a figure of speech here. And now, whereas my father did lade you with a heavy yoke, I will add to your yoke. My father hath chastised you with whips, but I will chastise you with scorpions. Once again, figure of speech to say, you thought things were difficult under my father, it'll be much more intense under me. So Jeroboam and all the people came to Rehoboam the 3rd day, as the king had appointed, saying, Come to me again the 3rd day. And the king answered the people roughly, and forsook the old man's counsel that they gave him, and spake to them after the counsel of the young men, saying, My father made your yoke heavy, and I will add to your yoke. My father also chastised you with whips, but I will chastise you with scorpions. Wherefore the king hearkened not unto the people, for the cause was from the Lord Yahweh, that he might perform his saying, which the Lord Yahweh spake by Ahijah the Shilonite unto Jeroboam the son of Nebat. So you can see here, right, it's not necessarily that Rehoboam was an idiot, right, or Rehoboam was just so far gone, but the Lord put the spirit on him to make that decision. To us, we're reading it, it's blatantly obvious that he should have listened to the older men, but who hath resisted the will of the Lord, right? The Lord did this on purpose so that the prophecy by Ahijah would come to pass, because this would trigger the reaction of Israel that would lead to that was the physical manifestation of the Lord rending the kingdom from the hands of Solomon, or in this case, Rehoboam. So when all Israel saw that the king hearkened not unto them, the people answered the king, saying, What portion have we in David? Neither have we inheritance in the son of Jesse. To your tents, O Israel, now see to thine own house, David. So Israel departed unto their tents. So basically saying, all right, then we ain't got nothing to do with you. You rule over your tribe, your house, and you keep it over there. But we not finna do this no more. And everybody left. But as for the children of Israel which dwelt in the cities of Judah, Rehoboam reigned over them. And you can imagine, right? Because when you actually look at the map of how the land was divided amongst the tribes, you can see that there were certain tribes, I think namely like Simeon, for example, that was south as well. Let's see here, map of Israel, Bible Times. Okay, yeah, you can see Simeon's land was encapsulated inside here, right, in this big portion of Judah. You had Benjamin, which was pretty close as well, Ephraim, Dan, and all that stuff. So, you know, eventually in due time, you can imagine sort of how things play out, right? You may have certain people that, you know, that stayed, and you may have certain people that eventually said, nah, you know, we're gonna go up there too, i.e. like you know, leaving, right, basically going up north, similar to how, as we're gonna read, Jeroboam ends up banishing or kicking out the Levites, because remember, the Levites had suburbs, which were like cities allotted to them within the inheritance or the land of the various tribes. And what Jeroboam ended up doing was he ended up kicking them out, right? So they ended up having to come down south here, and we'll see why. Verse 12, but as for the children of Israel, which dwelt in the cities of Judah, Rehoboam reigned over them. Then King Rehoboam sent Adoram, who was over the tribute, and all Israel stoned him with stones. So when he sent him over there to get that tribute, they said, man, don't play that. We don't play that shit. So they stoned him with stones that he died. Therefore, King Rehoboam made speed to get him up into his chariot to flee to Jerusalem, because remember, he was at Shechem. All right. And so when he saw that, yeah, these people ain't playing, he said, yeah, let me take my ass back down to Jerusalem. So Israel rebelled against the house of David on to this day. And this is the portion, right, the famous split, where now instead of the United Kingdom of Israel, you had the Kingdom of Judah and then the Kingdom of Israel, where there's a split. Verse 20, and it came to pass when all Israel heard that Jeroboam was come again, that they sent and called him unto the congregation and made him king over all Israel. And there was none that followed the house of David, but the tribe of Judah only. And so, so here you can see technically like they made Jeroboam like the first king of the kingdom or of Israel, which would be excluding the kingdom of Judah. You can sort of put it that way. Now it says here the tribe of Judah only, but as we're going to read down here, we can see that consists also of Benjamin and eventually Levi. All right. And when Rehoboam was come to Jerusalem, he assembled all the house of Judah with the tribe of Benjamin, 180,000 chosen men, which were warriors, to fight against the house of Israel, to bring the kingdom again to Rehoboam the son of Solomon. So see here, right, if this was literal, that only was a tribe of Judah, then how come he's able to also assemble the tribe of Benjamin here, right? If Judah was the only one that followed the house of David. Okay. But the word of God came unto Shemaiah, the man of God, saying, Speak unto Rehoboam, the son of Solomon, king of Judah, and unto all the house of Judah and Benjamin, and to the remnant of the people, saying, Thus saith the Lord Yahweh, Ye shall not go up, nor fight against your brethren, the children of Israel. Return every man to his house, for this thing is of me. Right? Meaning, no, we're not doing this. There's not going to be a war between the two. I'm the one who's causing this to happen. They hearkened therefore to the word of the Lord Yahweh, and returned to depart, according to the word of the Lord. Then Jeroboam built Shechem in Mount Ephraim, and dwelt therein. So here, you may say, well, in the beginning of the chapter, it said that Rehoboam was at Shechem. So how then did Jeroboam build Shechem? But here, we can even look into the word built. But I'm sure it's not like it's not like he actually built or, you know, set up that region. What it means is here, for example, to build a house. In this case, like a you know, his place where he would rule from, his palace, right, so to speak. So you can see here it says rebuild, establish, cause to continue, and that's basically what he ended up doing here. So it says here he built Shechem and Mount Ephraim, and we can see Ephraim is over here, and it doesn't specify Shechem, but from what we saw on the previous map, you know, it had to be somewhere around the territory of Ephraim in here. Oh, here they place it in right a little north of it, Manasseh. But once again, these are all estimations anyway. All right. It says here, and dwelt therein, and went out from thence, and built Penuel. Let's look at Penuel here. Penuel. See if they have some estimations of that. Okay. So according to this, Penuel they place on the east side here. So you have Shechem on the west, Penuel on the east. See if there's any other good diagrams here. Not really seeing too much of it. So let's go with that for now. Right. Let's go with that for now. So he ends up building these two places, i.e. like establishing them as these main territories. And Jeroboam said in his heart, so this is what he thought: now shall the kingdom return to the house of David. If this people go up to do sacrifice in the house of the Lord Yahweh at Jerusalem, then shall the heart of this people turn again unto their Lord, even unto Rehoboam king of Judah. And they shall kill me, and go again to Rehoboam king of Judah. What to do? Whereupon the king took counsel, and made two calves of gold, and said unto them, it is too much for you to go up to Jerusalem. Behold thy gods, O Israel, which brought thee up out of the land of Egypt. So out of fear that by having to go to Jerusalem 3 times a year to keep the holy days, they would basically repent of their thoughts of separation and say, you know what, we all have to come here and serve the same God anyway. We're all one people. Why are we even doing this? And he feared that, because then they would have had no need for him, and he feared they would kill him and go and serve Rehoboam, because the second they were to go back to Rehoboam, he would likely give the order to kill Jeroboam, take him out. So out of that fear, he took counsel, as I said, right? Probably discussed amongst him and those that were in his court. And they said, build golden calves, build an idol, and have them worship those idols rather than have to go to Jerusalem to serve the Most High. So as you can see here, it says, these are the gods which brought thee up out of the land of Egypt, right? And we know what the scriptures say about the Lord. He says he will not give his roughly paraphrasing, his credit, right, to another. His glory. And here, that's what Jeroboam was doing. And that's why when you read, as we'll keep going through the book of Kings, there's a constant reference to the sin of Jeroboam, that he made Israel to sin. And he set the one in Bethel, and the other he put in Dan. Right, so going back here, we can see Dan is over here, and Bethel is in Ephraim. So he set those 2 golden calves over there. And this thing became a sin, for the people went to worship before the one, even unto Dan. Now, it wasn't all of them, right? It wasn't everybody in the northern kingdom, or that were culminated as Israel under Jeroboam, that ended up doing this, right? There were still some Israelites that would still come to Jerusalem to still serve the Lord the right way. One example being Tobit, right? We go real quick to the book of Tobit. He mentions that. See if I can find it. I'm just going to go straight to the point here. Yep, here we go. All right, so this is Tobit chapter 1 verse 4. And we know Tobit, in comparison to where we are in terms of the time period in the book of Kings, at this point, the setting of the book of Tobit hasn't happened yet, right? Because Tobit ends up being one of the Israelites that was taken captive by the Assyrians to, that region over there in Assyria. And that doesn't happen until getting to the end of the book of, at least close to the end of the book of Kings, where the Assyrians come and, take the northern kingdom captive. But nonetheless, this is still relevant, right? So it says here, and when I was in mine own country, in the land of Israel, being but young, all the tribe of Naphtali, my father, fell from the house of Jerusalem, which was chosen out of all the tribes of Israel, that all the tribes should sacrifice there, where the temple of the habitation of the Most High was consecrated and built for ages. Now all the tribes which together revolted, and the house of my father Naphtali, sacrificed unto the heifer Baal, and that's that golden calf here that Jeroboam had built. So Tobit is saying here, right, in his days, the house of his father, the tribe of Naphtali, along with the other tribes, they were sacrificing onto Baal here in Dan and Bethel. Okay, and we can see Naphtali's all the way up here. So continuing on, verse 6, but I alone went often to Jerusalem at the feasts, as it was ordained unto all the people of Israel by an everlasting decree, having the first fruits and tenths of increase, with that which was first shorn. And them gave I at the altar of the priests, the children of Aaron, or to the priests, and them gave I at the altar to the priests, the children of Aaron. Okay, so there you go. So there's an account right there, right, where you had some Israelites, right, Tobit being an example, who did not serve or sacrifice onto the idols that Jeroboam had set up. Verse 30, and this thing became a sin, for the people went to worship before the one, even unto Dan. And it came, and he made an house of high places, and made priests of the lowest of the people, right? So the high places, the places of worshiping for their idols, right? And literally there would be like mountaintops or at hills or, actual high places. It says here, which were not of the sons of Levi. So he ended up setting up priests, which were not Levites here. And Jeroboam ordained a feast in the 8th month, on the 15th day of the month, like unto the feast that is in Judah. And he offered upon the altar. So similar to the feast that was being kept over there, he decided, let me create one over here. So we got our own thing going on here. It's kind of like how today, you have the holy days, and then sometimes the holidays of this world coincide with a holy day. And instead of Israel keeping the actual holy day, they're actually celebrating the holiday. Okay. So at this point, instead of the Israel keeping the holy day at Jerusalem, they would be keeping this other feast, right, in Israel, and offering upon this altar. So did he in Bethel, sacrificing unto the calves that he had made. And he placed in Bethel the priests of the high places which he made. So he offered upon the altar which he had made in Bethel, the 15th day of the 8th month, even in the month which he had devised of his own heart, and ordained a feast unto the children of Israel. And he offered upon the altar and burnt incense. So he made up this feast, this day, and just had Israel following it, sacrificing onto idols. Right, one of the things the Most High hates the most. But this is what ended up going, right? And this sets off that chain of that continuous idolatry and wickedness and drama and back and forth, and also some righteous acts, right? That's culminated in what we have as the Book of Kings. So that brings us to the end of the book of 1 Kings, the 12th chapter. Lord willing, that was edifying to the elect. In closing, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Recha, Kodesh. And until next time, Shalom.